All right, this is a video about the worksheet that we have. You guys can fill this out and turn it in for credit. I'm going to go through this whole thing with you. Measuring electricity lab. When using a digital multimeter measuring device, you must make sure you are putting the correct wires into the correct holes. And I'm going to actually give you a visual of that here in just a minute, but I'm going to just do it on this paper with a picture to start out with. Make sure you're using the correct dial settings for the current, voltage, or resistance. Microamp and milliamp have a resettable fuse. Use the milliamp setting to measure your current in class. Of course, we're not in class, but that's what we would be using. They use the 10 amp setting. Excuse me, the 10 amp setting has a fuse that can be burned out with a battery in a short circuit, which does happen, but hopefully it won't happen today. So I'm just going to go over these this information here. It says make sure you use the correct mode of the multimeter. We need to use the modes that are direct current or DC because we're using a 9-volt battery. So our units to measure these quantities, we have current, we're using amperage. Voltage is for measuring the volts. Voltage we use volts, and resistance is ohms. Okay, so here we have a picture of the multimeter that we have in class. It's a Mastech multimeter, and we have some different settings that you can turn. This center piece right here can be turned, okay, and this center piece right here can be turned, and we turn it to measure different things. This one right here, I need to get a different color here. You can see it a little bit better. This one right here, the arrow you can see is pointing to voltage. Okay, that is for measuring voltage, and that is for alternating current. Okay, and we'll abbreviate that for AC, alternating current. This one right here is also for measuring voltage, but that is for measuring voltage direct current. Alternating current, the top one, is for like what you plug into your wall outlet for charging up your phone or a lamp. This direct current is using a battery. This one right here is for measuring current. Okay, if we want to measure current in amperage, and in this one you see an MA, that is for milliamps. Okay, there are 1,000 milliamps in 1 amp. This one right here is for measuring amps. It's also for measuring current, and we use it for measuring amperes. We have a couple of things on the bottom here. This is from when we want to measure. We're going to be plugging wires into these different ports on the bottom. Here we have a 10 for measuring amps or amperes, and this is for 10 amps. Okay, so when we have larger amps, this one right here is for measuring, also for measuring amps, and we would say milliamps, milli, and micro amps. Okay, this one right here, this is your common port. This is where we plug our black wire into. You'll see that here in a second. And this one here, the 10 amp, this one here, micro and milliamps, and this one here we're going to be plugging in our red wire. And again, I'll show you that here in a second. This one here is for measuring, the red wire will be for voltage and for measuring resistance. Okay, and again, I'll show you that here in a second. Of course, this button right here on the top is your on-off button. This one here is for measuring resistance. And this one here is for measuring continuity. All right, now, oops, sorry about that. On the bottom here, it says to get 1 battery, 1 light bulb, and 2 wires too light. So set up your digital multimeter to measure the resistance of a light bulb. So we are going to do that. And let's see. Let's go with our camera here. And we've got this right here. And to measure the resistance, this is going to be kind of tough because I'm holding with one hand. I have to measure the resistance with the other. Here's our micrometer, or here's our multimeter. It looks just like the one you see in the picture. You'll notice we have our red here, and then we have our black wire here. Okay, this is our common port. The black will always stay there, and the red will change depending on what we're measuring. This is for measuring voltage and resistance, and this is for measuring, this is the typical one that we'll use for measuring milliamps. So we're going to measure the resistance of this light bulb right here. Let's see if I can set this up. Looks pretty good. And I want to have the red and the black here set up. And I'm measuring the resistance, and I get a resistance. Let me see if I can put this where you guys can actually see it. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that there. Set this thing up. And there we go. All right. So again, I'm going to put this down here. I need to be touching the wires part of it. And I'm touching it right here. And let's see if we can get a good reading. Where is it going to settle down? Well, I need to get a better hold on it. I'm pressing down pretty hard on these wires. .1 ohms. So we would go for this one. Light bulb resistance would be 2.1 ohms. Okay. Voltage of the battery. Let's see, this is our battery we're going to use. And let's get our camera back here. Oops, not that one. Camera. And here we go. We're going to measure direct current, voltage, and we get 8.62 volts. Okay, so let's put that here. 8.62. And then it says we're going to make a circuit, and we're going to measure the voltage in this circuit. So, oops, sorry about that. I'm going to make a circuit here. And here's one wire, and here is another wire. And we are going to hook this up like so, and like so, and our battery lights. Okay, so we have a completed circuit. It says we want to measure the voltage at the battery again. So we measure the voltage across the battery. Oops, let's see if you guys can see this. And we have a voltage of 5.3 approximately. And the voltage across the light bulb, again, 5.03. It's about the same. It's moving up and down a little bit. And that's what you would expect. The voltage is the same in both places. So we'll just put that as 5.03. and 5.03 volts and volts. And then it says to measure the amperage. What is the current? Okay, in order to measure the current, we are going to have to move this dial here to measure the current. This is in measuring amps, milliamps, and microamps. It says we want to measure it in milliamps. You'll notice when I do that this red light flashes here, because this red needs to be put into the milliamps port. This one here was for measuring voltage and resistance. The red wire moves around depending on what we're measuring. And here we're going to be measuring milliamps, or the current. In order to measure the amperage, we are going to break open the circuit, because remember we measure current through the wire. So I'm going to hook up one wire here, the black coming from the meter, and then the red coming from the meter. And you notice that when I did this, well, you can't see it because you can't see the light bulb. I put the black wire here, and I'm going to put the red wire coming from this meter right here onto here, and you notice the light bulb lights up. Okay, lights up. And when I do, it gives me the amperage, 220. Let's just say it's kind of fluctuating a little bit because my hand's not giving it the same amount of pressure. 217.5 milliamps. 217.5 milliamps. 217.5 milliamps. 1,000 milliamps in 1 amp, that would be 0.2175 amps. And that fills out your paper. So you guys, you have another worksheet to do. Actually, a couple of worksheets for this week, and you'll have your assignment completed. Make sure you check with me, email me, come to the Google Meet if you have any questions.